What's up, YouTube? It's Nick from Rise Up Sports, and today I'm coming at you with different video. It's not Pirtle today. Usually Pirtle comes out today, and I'm actually recording this like literally like 3 hours or 4 hours before this comes out. But I wanted to give this to y'all because I think this is an important topic for me to talk about. Today I'm going to be talking about the college football playoff and what ended up happening yesterday. As I'm recording this, obviously, and as y'all are seeing this. So on Sunday morning, the polls came out for the college football playoff and basically gave us what the playoff is going to look like and then the rest of the rankings for the rest of the teams. So let me pull it up real fast what the college football playoffs ended up being. So here we go. So as you can see now, you can see this ESPN's college football rankings for this week. See the AP poll over here, but the college football playoff rankings here will have Georgia at number 1, Michigan number 2, TCU 3, Ohio State 4, and then just missing out will be Alabama at 5, Tennessee at 6, Clemson 7, Utah 8, Kansas State 9, USC at 10. So how am I gonna attack this video? Because I have a couple of different things I want to talk about, and I haven't really talked about college football at all on this channel, really. I mean, ever. So far, this is our first one, I guess. But first of all, I'm going to talk about the top 4, I guess I'll say, or who's going to be competing in the playoffs. So, I mean, Georgia, Michigan, those two, I don't think there's any question about them being 1 and 2. I mean, Georgia has been number 1 almost all year. Never looked like they were going to lose. Like, if you look at their resume here, if you look at just their full schedule, you see like they beat number 11 Oregon 49-3. The first game of the year, I get Oregon was not what they are now. They beat South Carolina, who is now, I think, in South Carolina, I think they're a top 25 team. They're at number 19 right now. I mean, they have Spencer Rattler there. And he played really well, beat 2 top 5 or 2 top 10 teams. So they beat them 48-7. Then you have Auburn, who is a top 25 team, I believe. Beat them badly, beat Florida 42-20, beat Tennessee 27-13. That's the biggest one. And then beat LSU by 20. And then they're playing Ohio State, obviously, in the Peach Bowl to get to the national championship. So I don't think there's any, questioning why Georgia should be there. And then the same thing really goes for Michigan. If you look at Michigan's schedule, I mean, they beat kind of everybody they've played. Not as many like massive wins, but you beat Penn State 41-17. You beat Michigan State, who at the time was decent. And then you beat Ohio State, obviously the big one, 45-23, who was number 2 at the time. And then you beat Purdue in the Big Ten championship game. And then now you play TCU. So there's really no debating any of this, I don't think. I mean, well, you beat Illinois by 2. That's not great. But other than that, like, you beat everybody pretty bad. And you beat Ohio State, which was the number 2. And that's kind of the biggest reason they're there. But then you get to kind of some murky waters here. And I've had my opinions. I haven't really shared them. I have my opinions on TCU, Ohio State, Alabama, Tennessee, kind of that group of teams. Before we go into TCU, because that's going to be my major point of this video, I'm going to go to Ohio State, why they should be in at number 4. Obviously, they're a 1-loss team. They lost their only losses to Michigan, and they lost by 22 points. They lost by a lot, but they beat a Notre Dame team who is really good. They beat, Wisconsin, Penn State. They beat by 13. So they beat some good teams as well. I want to see if any of those teams, I don't actually know if any of those teams are in here anywhere. So Washington at number 12, I don't think they played them. Oregon's up there, like Notre Dame is 21 now, I guess, but so they beat some of the top teams. You could say even if they're not top 25 teams, they still beat a lot of good teams. And I don't think there should be any question, like, take Ohio State's resume versus Alabama, which a lot of people were saying, like, oh, Alabama should be in. So before I go into Alabama, let me just say this. Tennessee, Clemson don't deserve to be in it. I don't think there's any way you can put a Tennessee team in the college football playoff after losing 2 games, and the 2 games you beat Alabama by 3. You lost to Georgia by 14, and you lost to South Carolina by a million. Like, you just completely got blown out. I don't think there's any way the committee could say, oh, yeah, this is a 2-loss team, and then you have Ohio State with their only loss being to Michigan, and you can say, oh, yeah, I think Tennessee should definitely be in it. Like, that's not going to happen. So, Tennessee, no way. Clemson, also no way. They lost to, who did they lose to? They lost to Notre Dame by 21. They lost to South Carolina also. Yeah, sure, you beat North Carolina. Great for you. But that's not going to do you much at all. And then Clemson and Tennessee obviously playing each other in their bowl game. So other than that, you can't really put anybody else in here. Utah obviously beat USC twice, but they have 3 losses, and you can't put a 3-loss team in there. Kansas State as well. They beat TCU twice, or no, once. Wait, it was once, right? Yeah. They beat TCU once. So you can't put them in there either, even though you beat TCU. They have 3 losses, and USC, they moved down a lot because they lost to Utah twice. And those are their 2 losses. So really there's no complaints. I don't feel like for any other team to be in here. Everybody else either has 2 losses, like Washington, Penn State, they all have 2 losses, and the resume is not as good. You have Tulane, obviously, with 2 losses, but they haven't played really anybody the whole year. Now, for me, I'm a fan of the AAC because my team Houston's in there. I'm not going to look at this very much. Obviously, you lost to Southern Miss and you lost to UCF. Like, those aren't teams that are going to get you anywhere. Sure, you beat a Cincinnati and a UCF team that are ranked, but that's not really doing much for you. Even with 2 losses, I mean, you had, heck, if you want to go there, you have Jackson State coached by Deion Sanders. So, and they went undefeated. But so you can't put, there's some limit to what you can do by record. But my main point of this whole video, I want to show y'all I want to tell y'all why I think TCU deserves to be in this college football playoff, because a lot of people are saying they don't deserve to be in. They've had a easy schedule. They lost in their championship. Alabama would smoke them. Okay, first of all, let's get into this. Who knows what would happen in a game TCU Alabama on a neutral field? Like, take away the home stadiums, let's put them on a neutral field. Who knows what would happen? I honestly think TCU would have a good shot at that game. I'm going to be completely honest with you. So before I go into like why I think TCU should be in over Alabama, if your basic argument is if that TCU would get smoked by Alabama, what proof do you have of that? They've never played each other in recent history. How do you know Alabama would smoke them? Alabama's lost twice this year, and they really haven't played that many good teams. And the teams they have played that are good, they've lost to. So what kind of logic is that you're going to say Alabama would smoke TCU because they just have more talent? Well, so then I get into my argument. Okay, if you think that, let's look at TCU's schedule and let's look at who they've beat. But before I even do that, you have no proof that Alabama could smoke TCU. You don't have proof that they could beat TCU. They've lost 2 games. So, and then you have the conversation, okay, Alabama's lost 2 games. So take that out of consideration because you don't know what would happen in a game. Like, and then people think I'm all over the place. Sorry. I mean, you take the Cincinnati argument from last year. Cincinnati made it to the college football playoff, got smoked by Alabama, could not even get to the other side of the field. People were like, oh, it's the same thing. They went undefeated. They won their conference tournament, and they deserve to be in. Like, kind of like this year, if Tulane would have been undefeated in the AAC, would they have had a chance to make it? And they would have been right there because they would have been ranked higher. First of all, in that case, if you have Tulane undefeated, yeah, I'm going to say the same thing as the Cincinnati debate because they didn't play anybody. But in this case, TCU, their schedule has been much tougher than Cincinnati's was last year. That's number one. Their schedule has been much more difficult. Number two, TCU is a different team than Cincinnati was last year. Cincinnati had a lot of good players on that team and some really good NFL players. I mean, you think of Sauce Gardner, Desmond Ridder could be a starting quarterback in the league. Their running back was taken late in the draft. Najee Sanders is a edge rusher that, has promise in the league. Like, they had a lot of good players on that team. Sure. But I'm going to tell you right now, Max Duggan is a much better quarterback than Desmond Ridder is or will be. Just going to put that out there. I watched TCU in that championship game against Kansas State. Max Duggan is a much better player than Desmond Ridder is. I'm just going to put that out there. He's just better. TCU also has one of the best receivers in the league. In college football. Cincinnati had Alec Pierce as their best receiver, a good receiver. He was not one of the best receivers in NCAA last year. He just wasn't. TCU, I think, just has a much better team than Cincinnati was last year, much better players. And also, I think, have the argument of their schedule being a lot tougher. And then the next point is you can't penalize a team for making it to their conference championship and losing an extra game. Alabama didn't get there. Now, if Alabama got to their conference championship, the SEC championship, and they beat, if they beat somebody in their conference championship, like Georgia, I get Georgia and Alabama are on the same side. If they go and they beat LSU, maybe we're having a different conversation. Maybe then I would say, okay, Alabama was able to get to their conference championship and they won and they beat a team that was ranked really high. Maybe then I would say, okay, we have an argument now. But Alabama didn't even get there. So I don't think you can penalize a team in TCU who got to their conference championship and say, oh, they lost their conference championship after going undefeated. We're going to put Alabama in there because we think that Alabama's a better team. How can you say that? Alabama didn't even get to their conference championship. So how can you say that Alabama's just because they're a better team and they have a name brand? Like, you can't make that argument. So now let's first look at Alabama's schedule. Okay. So if we go in here, and I found something that's pretty funny also. You look, okay, yeah, you beat Utah State 55-0, sure. Then you beat Texas by 1 point. Texas, a team that's not even ranked right now, I don't believe. I don't think Texas is ranked. Okay, they are. They're number 20. Number 20 in the country. So you beat a team that's top 20. Okay, cool. By 1 point, and you barely won, and it wasn't even their starting quarterback. Then you play Arkansas. Sure, you beat them 20 by 23. That's great. You beat Texas A&M by 4. You lose to Tennessee by 3. Sure, that was a back and forth game. You made it competitive. You beat Mississippi State. You lose to LSU, who now has 4 losses, by the way. You beat Ole Miss by only 6, and then you beat Auburn. So, you have some ranked wins in there. You have Ole Miss. You beat Mississippi State at the time. You barely beat Texas. You beat Arkansas. So you beat some good teams, but you lost the 2 toughest games on your schedule. You lost Tennessee and LSU. Those are the 2 teams that you lost. And LSU made the SEC championship. Yeah, they got smoked by Georgia, but they made it there. But they have 4 losses, and you lost to them. So that doesn't say a whole lot. And they're playing. My funny thing will be if Kansas State can beat Alabama. That's going to be funny to me. If Kansas State beats Alabama, then we can say, okay, well, TCU beat Kansas State in the year. Yeah, they're sure they lost to them only by 3 in overtime, first of all. But Kansas State, if they can beat Alabama, we can say Kansas State beat a team that Kansas State beat Alabama and TCU beat Kansas State. So there you go. There's your argument. But so now let's look very quickly. I know this video is long and I'm all over the place. I understand that. TCU, let's look at their schedule. Okay. So first big win, Oklahoma. You beat Oklahoma. They were ranked at the time. Then you beat a ranked Kansas at the time by 7, sure, but you still beat them. Then you beat an Oklahoma State team. Then you beat a Kansas State team. That's 4 ranked wins in a row that you beat. Okay. Then you play West Virginia. Then you play Texas Tech. You beat them. You take care of business. Then you beat Texas by 7. Alabama only beat them by 1, and that was with their backup quarterback. Then you beat Baylor by 1. Sure, that was a tight one. Then you beat Iowa State, and then you lose to Kansas State by 3 in overtime. That was your conference championship game. Whose resume looks better? To me, it's TCU by far. 1, because they only have 1 loss, and it's in their conference championship. And 2, they had 4 ranked wins in a row. And at the time, Oklahoma was a very good team. And after that game, that's when Oklahoma started falling off. Then you beat Kansas, who at the time was very hot. You beat them. Then you beat Oklahoma State, who at the time was, again, a top 10 team, very hot. Then you beat a Kansas State team who ends up right now, they're in the top 10 of the rankings. That's 4 ranked wins in a row, and you didn't even look like you really struggled. You beat Oklahoma by 30. You beat Kansas by a touchdown. You beat Oklahoma State, tight game in overtime. Then you beat Kansas State by 10, and you just keep rolling. There was no time for me when it looked like TCU was going to crumble. Like, even the Texas game, like, they had that one. And so for me, that is my argument. Like, TCU should not be penalized for winning all their games and making it to the conference championship and losing. That's me. And I think TCU has a good shot this week to beat Michigan. I really, really do. Like, I get Michigan has played good this year, and they have some good wins. They beat Penn State. They beat Ohio State. They beat Purdue. Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. They have some really good wins. Penn State is the 11th ranked team in the country right now. They're a very good team. And Michigan beat them. But TCU has a lot of ranked wins. They have a lot of good players on the team. I think it matches up well. Blake Corum, Michigan's running backs, out for the year. I have a good feeling TCU is going to put up a very good fight against Michigan. And if TCU beats Michigan, then I think people will say, okay, you were right. TCU deserved to be in there. That's my take. Ohio State, Georgia, just to wrap it up. I think Ohio State has a good chance to beat Georgia as well. I think the matchups are great. I think Ohio State, Georgia, they match up very well. And I think Michigan, obviously Ohio State, Michigan would have been cool to see again. But it could be an Ohio State, Michigan championship. There's a good chance it could be a Big Ten championship, but we will see. I think TCU gives Michigan a good shot. I don't think it's going to be lopsided like everybody else does. But we'll see. I think it could be a TCU Ohio State championship. We'll see. I don't know. I'm not saying TCU is going to win, but I think they're going to give them a good shot. TCU deserves to be in over Alabama. Nobody has any proof that TCU would get smacked by Alabama. Just not true. So that's my take. If you have any comments, let me know. I know this video is kind of hot. I got heated with this. I've just heard a lot of people have different opinions about it. And I just don't think, coming from a fan of teams that aren't necessarily in the best conferences, when you have a team like TCU, especially a team like them who have beat a lot of good teams and they don't get credit, kind of drives me nuts. I think TCU has a really good team and think they have a chance. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next Rise Up Sports.